Welcome to Featured Insights, presented by Caroline Economic Development. I'm your host, Debbie Bowden. This podcast is for all size businesses in Caroline County and the Eastern Shore of Maryland to learn from experts at the local, state, and national level. We hope that you gain insights that can help your business run more effectively. Hi, Nicole Pearce.
Hello.
So this is Nicole Pearce. She is with Caroline County Finance Office. She is the purchasing coordinator. So we're going to share and talk a little bit today about what it means for a business that's in Caroline County to do work with Caroline County. And so I'd call you an expert, but you've only been with the county for a couple months. How long have you been with Caroline County?
Since the end of September.
Okay, September
so
20.
About 5 months.
About 5 months. Very good. And if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about how you got to be here, because I think your story is really interesting, and people in the businesses in Caroline County are going to want to know that you've got that experience too. So what was your last job before you came on to Caroline County?
I was an office manager for an HVAC company.
Okay.
And prior to that, I worked for a big truck company, and part of my job was doing bids on the opposite side.
Oh, okay. So on the opposite side, meaning that you were receiving bids. So you saw what you're sending out now.
Yes, ma'am.
For people to look at. Okay. And how did that work with trucking? So was it government bids that you were responding to, or was it private sector? Because I think that's going to be interesting for people to know too.
Most of it was government bids. Most individual companies don't submit bids to vendors.
Okay.
So it's mostly just government and well, I guess some big truck companies do, but majority of it's government.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So one of the famous things in transportation is the fact that Walmart and their vendors and their suppliers, including some of their transportation companies, they send out bids. So if a company is used to responding to a potential customer as a vendor in the form of a bid, then they've got at least a basic understanding of how to do it for the government. Do you think that that's correct based on your experience?
I'd say it's a good understanding.
Okay. So when you worked for the as an office manager, talk a little bit about what you did with that.
I did all aspects of business. I did AP, AR, customer service, sales, accounting, parts. I would source parts if we needed them. So I would have to go to several different vendors and try to find the best deal, and find, with what's going on in the world right now with trying to get parts, it was a little bit harder because a lot of vendors can't get things. So I had to try to find the best price and who had it in stock.
Right. And so you're seeing that now, right, with the RFP. So let's go ahead and circle back then to the work that you're doing now. So you're purchasing coordinator. What is your official role? What do you do with that?
I am the person who everybody in the county comes to if they need to put something out to bid within county guidelines or within the purchasing guidelines. I can not go out to bid, but if it's over the purchasing guidelines, then I would go put a bid together, make sure that all the legal behind it is done, and that all of the guidelines are met within the county. And it goes back and forth several times between the director and me and the legal team, and we just make sure we have everything set and pretty much set out to what we're looking for.
So as directors of departments, so that's Public Works, Planning and Codes, Recreation and Parks, Economic Development and Tourism, IT, Internet, Information Technology. So all of those, the directors have to buy stuff. And you referenced a couple times guidelines. So there's rules that have to be followed, right? You want to touch a little bit on those, because some of those are based on how much something is, right?
So the county has guidelines, and anything between $1,000 and $5,000 has to be not bid out, but you have to get several quotes. You have to have at least 3 quotes. Anything above that, between $5,000 and $40,000, then it really depends on the director's spending limits.
Oh, right. Okay.
So each department is different based on what they spend. And if it goes above 40,000, then it has to go out to bid.
Okay. So there's thresholds, and it's all meant to protect the public money, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And to make sure that things are bought fairly and at the best value, right? Doesn't
ma'am.
always mean the cheapest rate. Is that correct?
Not, it's not always the cheapest rate.
Right.
It really depends on. It could be the cheapest, but it's not exactly what you're looking for. So we have to take into consideration the time frame to get it. We have to take into consideration the quote, and we have to make sure that it meets exactly what the department's looking for, because if it's not what they're looking for, then it's a waste of their money.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people probably have a hard time for remembering. So in the private sector, when you were working for the HVAC company, one of your jobs was buying parts, buying supplies. When you're working with the trucking company, a lot of times you have guidelines, policies, procedures, but you have rules, right? So our purchasing rules are actually in county code, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so that means that we can't just go, okay, I need to get a microphone or a set of microphones or a van to carry the microphones or hot tar for asphalt. The directors have to go through a process.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're on board to help with that process, aren't
Yes,
you?
ma'am.
Yes, yes. And so this role, you're in the finance office, which is great because it really has to do with the money. How do you work with the legal team? You mentioned them too, the county attorney.
I work with them to try to streamline our contracts. And anything, there's several different kinds of contracts. There's professional contracts, there's service contracts, and then there are tangible item contracts.
Okay.
So each one of them has different writing, has different verbiage. So I have to go back and forth with the legal team to make sure that the county is covered and the vendor is covered as well.
Because we want to make sure, again, we're not looking to short shift anyone. We want to make,
No.
if there's a value that we're going to pay for, we're going to pay for the service or the part that we're going to get. So I'm a business and I'm listening to this Featured Insights podcast here in Caroline County or along the Eastern Shore. How are they going to find out if they've got the thing that the county wants? What's the process for them to learn if there's an item to be sold to a county or that they want to practice or participate in a bid? How do they go about that?
Well, our bids are put out on our county website,
Okay.
which you can sign up for. Simple, there's a little box you click and you will get notified of any bids that come available. We also put it out on the eMaryland Marketplace, or EMMA for short.
Okay.
We also post them on our Facebook page.
Okay.
And we also work with economic development. So you guys since put them out to all of the local contacts that you have and the Chamber of Commerce. And we also put that out in the Star Democrat.
Oh, okay.
It's published at least twice in the Star Democrat. So people have plenty of time to see that in there and ask questions before the bid's due.
Okay.
And there's a really good time frame.
So going back, let's talk a little bit about that. So those bids are usually in the back section of the paper, right? So either you see it electronically or actually pick up a paper. It's the Star Democrat, right? It's not going to be the Caroline Review, or it's got to be the Star Democrat. The government has something called publication, official publication. So if anyone's interested and they're doing construction or they're selling a product that the county's going to need, they on a regular basis can just look at the paper in the back near, it's public notices, right?
I think it's in legal notices.
Legal notices, that's right, near the classified section.
Yes, ma'am.
Or sign up with CarolineBusiness.com, a little plug. CarolineBusiness.com is the economic development website, and you sign up for that. And we're working with you and with the county government to make sure that we're getting those notices. Hey, there's a bid that's just posted. And then it's up to the business to read about it and decide if that's something they want to do. And then the direct website for the county government, which would cover, your office, the Office of Finance, is carolinemd.org.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and so you can that's a good way to navigate it. I know that one of our commissioners, Travis Breeding, he wants local businesses to know about this and take advantage of the opportunity to work inside the county. So you talked a little bit about that those thresholds above or beyond, sorry, I'll get the word right, below 40,000. How do local businesses make themselves known that, hey, I've got a software service or I've got a piece of equipment that you may need that's going to be under 40,000, because that doesn't require a bid. How do you think that they should just let themselves be known?
Well, you can always go onto the website. I know that they are working on rebuilding several parts of the website. And if you have an IT kind of thing, you could always go onto the county website and go to that specific department.
Okay.
And all of the people who work in that department are listed on the right-hand side.
That's correct.
So you'll
Yep.
be able to go directly to the type of business or type of product that you offer to let them people know. You could also, I guess if you're driving down the road and you see something that you
Right.
sell, and if you see a John Deere tractor or something like that, and
Yep.
contact that department.
That's what I wanted to get at. It's not just the one-way street.
Right.
We're in a business of government, so networking, making yourself known, either to the department heads, the staff, the commissioners. Commissioners, county commissioners are a really good resource because they're out on the streets. People come up and talk with them. It's Travis Breeding, Frank Bartz, Larry Porter. Let them know you have a business, and if there's something that somebody in the county needs, following those guidelines, then that director of that department can make that decision. So that's great. Let's see, what else do we want to cover? What else you got going off?
Also, if you are in county, you get a 5% preference on bids.
Let's say that again.
If you are in county business, you get a 5% variable on bids. You get a 5% preference.
So that's what we can talk about is preference. So, okay, we've set the stage. So I'm a director. I need something. It's over $40,000. I work with you. You work with our county attorney. We put out a bid. Businesses see it on the website. They say, okay, I'm going to respond to that bid. There's instructions on how to do that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because there's paperwork involved. Again, making sure that we're protecting the public's money. Then what happens? So somebody responds to a bid. Let's share what happens with that.
So it depends on what department it is. A lot of departments have pre-bids. So if it's a construction project or something like that, the department usually sets a pre-bid, which allows the people who are interested in bidding on it to come to the location, whether it's the courthouse or Department of Economic Development or a site or anything like that. It allows them to meet with the director of that department.
Okay.
And see the project at hand.
Oh, wow.
So that you're not going into it blind.
So you're not just having to read the piece of paper
Right.
to figure out what to do. Okay.
So they have a pre-bid, so you can actually come and see what the work is, see if it's something that you're certified to do, see if it's something you can handle. And so you have a pre-bid time.
Okay.
And then after the pre-bid, there's a limit for questions. There's a deadline for questions on there. So
Okay.
anybody who asks a question, I work with that department, whether it comes to me, it should go directly to the department, but we talk back and forth, and there's a deadline for questions, and it's all public information. So if you were to come in and ask me a question about a bid, and somebody else were to come and ask me a question about a bid, I will issue an addendum right after the date of the questions, and that gets sent out to anybody who has asked me any questions, anybody who has put their name on a list, and then it gets posted to the same places. It gets posted to Facebook, it gets posted to the county website, it gets posted to email and marketplace as an addendum, so that any information somebody asks is public information. So everybody has access to the same information. That way it keeps it an even... nobody has a leg up on somebody else for
Exactly.
asking a question.
Right.
So-
or a question that you may not think
Been
of.
thought of. Right. So that gets posted as an addendum. It is all public information.
Okay.
And then the bid date is set, and the bid has to be into my office by it's usually 10 o'clock. And we're trying to keep them on Wednesdays because it's a good day. It doesn't interfere with anybody else's schedule. And we have an open bid. So it is all public information. You can either drop it off, you get a receipt, or you can stay for the bid. We read everybody's bid out loud.
Oh, wow. That's
Check
kind of
off
old school, isn't
if
it?
anybody, it's all public information so that
Right.
nobody feels that, there's no favoritism or anything like that because it's all read open.
So if it's somebody from Caroline County or if it's somebody from coming over from Delaware or up in Elkton, they have to bring the bid in, right? It is a hard copy requirement.
Or they can mail it.
Or mail it, okay.
Yes.
But regardless, it's something physical and tangible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No emails, nothing like that.
No email. So it's right there. You can't change it. Once you have it in your hands, it's that.
And they're all sealed, so we can't even see them before.
Sealed bid. So that's what that means. I don't know if a lot of people realize it physically means sealed. You open them all, you read them all, and the people who bid can be there, or anybody.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
all part of the
It's all
public.
Even if you didn't bid and you just wanted to come in, you're allowed.
Okay. All right. So I think that's fascinating. I think that's a part of government people don't realize, that we are open. We want the information, and we want people to have that information too. So I interrupted you. Go ahead. What's
No, you're
next
fine.
after you open the bid?
So after the bids are read, then I take them back, and if the department has to look over it, if it's something as a low bid and there's nothing variable in it, like gas, propane, or anything like that, that's usually awarded pretty easily. If it's something that has to be looked at, then the department heads go and they look at it. And at that time, I post a pre-award
Okay.
bid tabulation. So again, posts to all of those sites.
Okay.
And it tells everybody who bid,
Uh-huh.
or actually anybody who wants to look on the county website.
Right.
I direct email it to the people who did bid. But it lists everybody's price on it. So if you didn't come to the bid, you still have information as to
Gotcha.
what everybody's bid was.
Gotcha.
And then it goes to the department, and they determine who, wins the bid based on their guidelines, and we start the contract process.
Gotcha. So you just gave a really good summation of a kind of a complicated process, but knowing each piece and laying it out like you did makes it a little bit easier to understand and work through. Let's go back to your time at the trucking company when you were working on the other side of it, as you put it, accepting government contracts. So seeing both sides now, what kind of advice would you give a business that wants to do a bid?
It's not as hard as it looks.
Say that again.
It's not as hard as it looks.
Yeah.
A lot of paperwork, but some of it pertains to you and some of it does not pertain to you.
Okay.
There's an option on there, whether it's an individual limited liability or corporation. And I'm an open book. People can call me. I've had people call me and ask me questions about how to fill out the bids. And I'm willing to help anybody out, ask any questions. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I don't have any information about it again, but you can give my phone number's on there. My
Okay.
email is on there.
Okay.
It's on the first sheet. So if it's really not as hard of a process as it looks. It's super easy, and I can fully explain it to anybody who has any questions.
And I think you're doing a great job now. And then, so you work with the department head to understand like the technical detail. So if somebody has a technical question, you coordinate to be able to answer that, or it goes to the pre-bid time frame also, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing is access. You have access. Can you go ahead? We'll put it up on the screen for YouTube viewers, but can you also go ahead for the listeners only and give your email address? Say it twice for us, please.
It's N Pearce, which is PEARCE at carolinemd.org. Again, it's N Pearce, PEARCE at carolinemd.org.
And a phone number if people have questions that are listening and want to reach out to you.
Sure. It's 410-479-4118.
Again?
410-479-4118.
Our phone number is 4881. Okay, so let's see. department head, recapping, department head says, I need this. They work with you work with legal, you put out the information, the invitation to bid. People look at that, get tons of people from Caroline County responding to that. They go in, you open up a sealed bid, they get a contract. Now, do you work on that part of it? That's after the award of the bid, the award of the contract. Do you have a role in that as the purchasing coordinator?
I do. After everything is done and I get the contract done, then I submit it to the commissioners, and they have to give it their approval at their commissioners meeting. And then it comes back and everything gets executed, and I send the purchase order and the signed contract back to the vendor. And at that time, I will hand it over to the department head as the person that they would be dealing with.
Okay. So you're not out there measuring and make sure buildings are done correctly or roadways, but you do help both the business, the vendor, and the department head by taking it through that last governmental step, which is approval by the commissioners. So let's talk a little bit about that. That is, again, that last check off to make sure that everything's fair and equitable. What kind of questions do you get, or would somebody get, do you think, from a commissioner at the point of them signing the contract?
Usually everything is pretty good and tight down by the time it gets to the
Okay.
commissioners, but they are free to ask any questions that they want. They could ask why specifically we chose that vendor and not somebody else. They could ask if we got enough bids, if we thought that we should rebid it and try to get it out there again.
Okay.
It just depends on the time frames, but they're open to ask the department head any questions that they want and have full justification as to why they chose them.
But again, you work towards making sure all of those questions are answered. So I think that would be something that if someone would get into government bidding new, would be the bureaucracy of it, right? And you've talked about how it seems like a lot, but it's not to open the bid. But that last part, some folks would be like, oh, my stuff is going to be out there in public. That's the purpose of it. That's why we want to do that. But we make sure that the whole process is protected when it does get to the commissioners. And they may ask questions, but they're asking questions because that's their job. They've been elected to make sure that the public's money is protected, the process is protected. Local companies have that 5% preference. It's something else I want to get back to. So I think all of that, you've made it seem a little less scary. And if somebody is listening and wants to try this out, please give Nicole a call. Call our office if you want to ask some pre-questions, but give Nicole a call. So final thing is, let's talk about this 5%. What does that mean? And I'm assuming that has something to do with a scoring system. And how is that built?
It's based on price.
Okay.
They get a 5% variable on price.
Okay.
So if somebody were to, let's just say, bid $100 and somebody else bid $105, the 5% would, take into effect.
Okay.
And make it an even bid. I mean, it would be a bad situation, but
Right.
basically gives them a 5% variable on their price.
So how that happens is there is scoring involved.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's not just, oh, well, I feel like I want to use X,
No.
Y, or Z. It has to be documented. The department head, again, works with you and says, okay, these are the things that are most important to me in making sure that the bid for this work gets done in the way that we want. Time, quality, quantity, price, etc. So all things being equal, then, that because low price is our goal, it's not the only thing, but we do work towards that. If a local company and a company outside of Caroline County had everything else equal, but the Caroline County price, it gets a 5% variable to say, okay, then that is the lowest price, and that makes it win. So it's
As long as they meet the qualifications of the guidelines.
Right, that's right. Yeah. And that's, it's just like anything else. If you're working, especially in construction, especially in those kinds of services, engineering, construction, professional services, you're used to business. You've got to prove out why you need that job. And this is the same thing. It just is more in an open, the public has a right to know, and the public is told what's going on. But to your point earlier, doesn't seem as bad as it is. So
No.
I hope that we can get more local businesses that come out and talk with you and look for bids. Any big bids that you know of that are in the pipeline that might be coming up? This is February 2023, so let me put a date on that.
We have a couple of coming up. I just had a painting one come across.
Okay.
And I had one come across today. I haven't had a chance to look at it today.
Yeah.
But there are some open on the county website right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a agricultural lease farm
Yep.
that's currently open. It closes next week. I know the public library has one open. We
Okay.
also do the public library's bids for them.
Gotcha.
And on top of the bids, we've also put out a couple requests for quotes on our websites.
Let's talk about that. RFQs, right? What does that mean?
It means that it doesn't meet the specifications of a bid.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't meet over the $40,000,
Okay.
but it's still over our $5,000.
Gotcha.
And trying to get more information out to the local businesses, we have put them up on our website.
Gotcha.
So there is one on there for generator maintenance.
Okay.
There's one on right now for elevator maintenance.
Oh, okay.
So we are trying to get as many quotes as we possibly can. Like I said, it doesn't meet the $40,000 guideline, but it still meets the fact that we have to have 3 quotes if it's over $5,000.
Gotcha.
And it's
Gotcha.
not the full bid process. That's basically just submitting a quote on your company letterhead
Okay.
that meets the guidelines that are on that paper.
Okay. So somebody can look on the website, can see that request for quote, which is different than the request for proposal. The request for quote means that the job is anticipated to be under $40,000. That's county guidelines. And the department head is looking for a quote so that they can select either best price, best delivery, best value, et cetera. So, yeah, so you don't have to be necessarily looking for those big things.
No.
It can be the smaller work. But there's opportunities still in the county government. You know, I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Do we do requests for information, RFIs, here in Caroline County?
Well, we do, all of our bids are basically posted as notices.
Okay.
Their RFQ, a lot of them means that you can request online.
Okay.
So all of ours are posted as public notices.
Gotcha.
Because we want them in hand. We don't allow people at this point to submit anything online.
Gotcha. Okay.
So all of ours are listed as notices
Okay.
so that we have to have everything in hand.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming out. I appreciate it. I want to say again, just keep, for folks that are listening or watching on YouTube, don't let it scare you. We're here. Our office is here. Nicole is great. She's only been here since September, but she really feels like she's been here for a longer time. She knows what she's doing, and she's had the experience that you've had as a business. So, Nicole Pearce, thank you so much for coming out
You're
with
very
us. I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Not a problem. It's nice being here.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to Featured Insights and look for us on your favorite podcast platform.